All right, cool. Welcome everybody to the July, despite it being August 1st, the July 2024 Kubernetes Atlanta meetup. We had a lot of stuff going on in the month of July and dates didn't line up, so we had to kind of push this in the next month, but it worked out because we got an awesome speaker and we got to relax a little bit. So let me share my screen and we're going to jump into the news section in just a second. All right, one of these here. So before we get in, thanks everybody for showing up online. Hopefully we'll have some more people trickling in here in person. It's a busy traffic day here in Atlanta, so it's a little bit treacherous to make it here down to the Georgia Tech ATDC. But want to start off by thanking our sponsors, SpeedScale, the Georgia Tech ATDC, and Calendly. They provide coordination, orchestration, physical location, and the Zoom webinar that we're using for all of this. So thank you all for what you contribute there. We really appreciate it. And then before we jump into...
Can I butt in, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just shout out to Calendly for making job seeking like so much easier, because like now you actually can grab time on people's calendars and you can share your own, right? Like, and all of the competitors too, right? But just the whole experience. It's like I just went through that. Obviously, I have a new thing, right? So yeah, thanks for
Yeah, super great tool. One of the things we like to do here with our community is let people know if you're hiring. So if anybody on the chat, feel free to post information about your company, the position title, maybe a link to a job description, something like that, and contact info for how somebody can reach out to you. So if you're hiring for anything in and around the technical world, feel free to post it. I'll collect those later, make sure they get into the show notes, and potentially try to read them out loud if I remember. And that being said, we're going to jump into our This Month in Kubernetes news section. So we are still in the version 1.31 release cycle. I believe the change freeze went in last week. And so the next kind of major thing, there's going to be a release candidate that's done later this week or early next week. And then the actual release for 1.31 is expected on August 13th as of right now. So that's got a number of things in it. And actually, I was supposed to add a link. Okay, I added it down below. So I'll talk about that when we get there. But earlier last month in July, there was a CVE. I think it pertains only to Windows containers. So if you're not running Windows containers, not that big of a deal. If you are, kind of a big deal. But so there were some fixed releases with patches for that CVE. So 130.3, 129.7, 128.12, and 127.16. So keep an eye out, especially if you are running Windows containers. So now we're going to jump into the promotions, deprecations, CVEs, PRs of notes, community news section. And if you see an NA here, that does not mean necessarily that there was nothing in that category. It just means there was nothing of note to bring up based on my personal opinions. For promotions, we had this port forward over WebSockets is promoted to beta. This is actually an interesting one. I won't dive too deep on this, but if you're familiar with like kubectl port forward, kubectl exec, different things like that, they open these kind of like long running streaming bidirectional connections between client and server to be able to send commands back and forth, information, and everything like that. And historically, this has been using the Spidey framework or protocol, whatever you want to say there. And that was actually deprecated in 2015, I want to say. So it's been deprecated for a bit. HTTP 2 had some things around this, but it actually didn't implement any of the streaming stuff very well. So WebSockets was kind of chosen as the potential path forward. There was an experimentation done within the Kubernetes project That turned out to go pretty well, and so this looks like the path forward. Though this has been talked about a lot, but it looks like it's pretty stable now. So I think we'll get some performance and stability improvements to any of the kind of underlying client server side streaming efforts that use this type of stuff. So pretty cool to see that being promoted. Also linked to the KEP here if you want to really dive into the nuts and bolts of the why, when, where, all that stuff. So
I'm gonna try for it.
Okay.
Keps. Okay, that's the meme, right?
So the CD, as I mentioned earlier, incorrect permissions on Windows containers logs. I know nothing about Windows, so I would butcher this if I tried to say anything about it other than that. But I did provide a link if you care about it and want to go read more about it. But since it's a pretty big CVE, I did want to bring it up and make sure people were aware of it.
If I were going to run Windows, I would want to run it with Kubernetes. I'll tell you that.
That's fair. That is fair. That is completely fair.
I don't always run Kubernetes, but when I do.
So PRs of note, adding the --4 equals create option to kubectl await. So this is kind of cool too. So there's a lot of things with kubectl await that's kind of become ubiquitous if you're doing any type of scripting or automation around different sort of life cycle stages of Kubernetes deployments and things of that nature. Especially like in the olden days. I can say that now that Kubernetes has been running for 10 years, But where you used to just kind of have like a sleep 5, check again in a loop to try to figure out if like pods had come up and the deployment and everything was ready. Well, then kubectl await came out and you could say, wait for this deployment to be ready state. Well, now you can actually say, wait for it to be created for different types of resources that don't necessarily have a ready state, or if you just want to know once the resource has been created, regardless of the state. So pretty cool enhancement to be added there. And then jumping into community news, and I'm going to actually go out of order here because 10 years of Kubernetes, I think that's a cool place to start. And I want to go into that a little bit in two different ways. One, I want to give an anecdote for myself, but then I would like to get maybe something from Leigh, because I know he's been around the community for a long time as well. But if you didn't know, Kubernetes turned 10 this year. And a lot of people did some parties to kind of celebrate that. Sadly, we did not do that here in Atlanta, but I had a party in my heart to celebrate. And so there's a nice blog post here on the Kubernetes blog, kind of getting some anecdotal thoughts from a lot of the prominent folks that have been in the community for a large portion of Kubernetes lifespan, and some great pictures of different community events. I'm happy to say that I think Leigh and I are both in this one from the Contributor Summit in 2023 in Chicago.
Yeah, that's Chicago over there. I think we're up in the corner there.
Yeah, somewhere around here. And I know that because I'm going to zoom in. Jason D. Tiberius's orange beard right there. But it just has some cool, like, people remembering things. And I really liked this notable milestone list here, where you can see some of the major progressions of the project throughout time. Of you think back and it's like, RBAC, that's always been there, right? No, not always. Or things like custom resource definitions. Like, no, those actually used to be third-party resources, and then they didn't exist before that. So a lot of cool things to kind of reminisce about and see exactly how far the project's come. And then some stats. If you didn't know this, the Kubernetes project, the CNCF at large, have this really cool project called DevStats, where they track contributions across pretty much all of the projects, SIGs, and everything within the community. So we have a total over 88,000 contributors to the Kubernetes project. That is wild. Second largest open source project in the world at this point.
Joe, I think that's larger than the Google headcount.
That's larger than most companies. For sure. But over 4 million different contributions, over 300,000 pull requests. So just kind of neat little things to kudos to the entire community on how far things have come in all of that. And then I wanted to share for me, like, I remember being so frustrated. I think I started dabbling around Kubernetes in like the 1.3, 1.4 era, and it was so frustrating. The documentation was awful, if there was any. And I remember some of my first contributions to the Kubernetes project was going and like adding, there was this, not the source, but there's like this dictionary of terms that was on the Kubernetes website that was like trying to track things. And it was like literally things were changing so fast that the project itself didn't even have definitions for a lot of the core components within the project itself. So things like pods, deployments, stateful sets, things like that. So some of my first contributions were going in there and like adding those definitions.
So even just as of 2 years ago, when I started working with Whitney Leigh, Wiggity Whitney, on Twitter, Whitney's first contributions were to the Kubernetes glossary as well, right? And it's still, there's still unclear terminology, and like we're still trying to figure out the lexicon of what we're actually talking about. The 88,000 number actually blows my mind, because in 2017, when I was picking up some of the work on KubeADM, I vaguely remember seeing dev stats and looking at it and thinking to myself, I'm one of like, I think 2,800 people in the world who are contributing and like have that little piece. And that the factor of growth, I haven't thought about what happened to the project. Like I can't imagine 86,000 more people like coming in and working on the thing, and like talking with like Paris Pittman about the machines, the engineering that she was doing. She had, I think, 7 different mentorship initiatives of different shapes and targets and levels of intensity. And like we want to build a machine and a structure that builds the software, right? And that machine has people operating it. And so all of these social structures that we built amongst ourselves have produced an incredible effort. And then you look at the rest of the CNCF landscape, and I mean, like, this is a really big deal because that's just Kubernetes.
Yeah. I think my first contributions to the project were in 2018, 2019, somewhere around in there. And even then it was under 10,000 contributors. Like I want to say it was even like under 5,000.
Okay, so even within that 2 years, that was like 4x in the number of people touching the Kubernetes repos. That's wild.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll share from my end on this is kind of like the, solving the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever it is, So I've known Leigh for a long time at this point, but I met Leigh through contributing to the Kubernetes project. He was a mentor to me in kind of some of the first places that I started contributing to the project. So
I have totally forgotten about that. Because sometimes I consider you more involved than me right now.
It happens, it's one of those ways.
We were working on component config and working group component standard, weren't we?
Yeah. That was my first KubeCon. Like we had only ever talked through Slack and GitHub, and we were sitting at the same table at GitHub and didn't even know it until we saw like name tags and whatnot, and was like, "Wait, are you like?" So
the
yeah,
Contributor Summit is a beautiful place where like that just happens over and over again, and it actually takes me back to the first time that I met people like Jerome in the Docker project, which had a similar energy with the sort of Docker Contributor Summit. I actually don't remember if it was called that specifically, but there was like a project area where you could just give feedback about, I think Docker Swarm should do this, or, what if Docker Network had these features, and like, and it was very much the same energy. Like you would go and you'd participate, and there was like a special, set of boxes of swag so that you could feel proud, to be part of the community and to like try to like leave your mark and build something that mattered. I love that about open source, that you can make this software that's not bound by overly overbearing legalese, and that it's just a stage that we can choose to invite everybody to, right? And that we can choose and who we let in the room, and who we want to be a part of what we're working on is the thing that I get the most emotional about. And the major thing that we've built with the cloud native projects is not a container orchestrator. It's not a set of consistent API machinery that can be exposed, and used from a bunch of infrastructure projects. It's not a networking solution or whatever. It's definitely the people. I think that the quality, and the kindness and the integrity, the way that we treat each other, the way we do business with each other, the way that we cover each other's backs when our startups, that have been struggling for years go out of business. It's just, there's something special in this community. And I think that our community, I will say it over and over again, is the most important CNCF project. And I feel so lucky and fortunate and proud to be a member of this with all of you. Like, it's so wonderful. But yeah.
Ditto.
Anyway.
Yeah. I'm sure we could wax on forever about fun memories in the project.
There's other community news from all of the people that we get.
So one of the other things, I'll jump back to the first bullet point here, is Kubernetes removals and major changes in 1.31. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but as with any new major Kubernetes release, there's going to be some things that go away, and there's going to be some new things, and there's going to be some old things that change.
Ooh, I actually don't know if there's any press in here about this, but there is something I worked on a little bit that's related to this release, and if it's not in here, I'll mention it.
So there's some things of some signature support that's being retired. I don't think that should surprise anybody. There's definitely going to be some API removal stuff, just as the project, grows. All in-tree integrations with cloud providers gone. Finally. This has literally been an effort almost since the Kubernetes project had cloud providers in tree. And then there's following right behind that is removing a lot of the in-tree storage, like volume plugins. Another major effort there. And again, those are just some of the big things. There's a lot more. There is a link down here that I do want to call out for the API deprecation guide. That'll be super important. But feel free to peruse through on your own time. But Leigh, did you have something you wanted to call out?
We have an alpha feature going in that is the starting point for a bunch of granular authorization work that we have been working on in SIGAuth. And my new job is really a huge pivot away from direct Kubernetes work. So I'm in the process of figuring out what bandwidth is going to look like for me right now. I'm just in the middle of exploring a new universe and becoming authoritative in a new thing. But I want to make sure that we keep pushing through for this moonshot of what's called referential authorization, and the ability for API authors to tell Kubernetes in the API machinery that when people make a config, that it can be part of a three-way handshake.
Okay.
And so we want to get to the place where an ingress and a gateway controller and continuous delivery controllers like Flox and Argo CD and stuff like Tecton that need access to a million secrets, or other custom resource definitions like Git repositories, and when you put a reference to a thing in another Kubernetes object, that we would be able to define some semantics that give the controller only granular access to that thing, even potentially while it's only working on that thing, that we would get a very special kind of privilege access. And there's a bunch of mechanisms that need to work to make this happen. We've got KEPs that detail parts of the designs. But the thing that's shipping in 131 is the first piece of the API machinery that, and it has a use in Node Authorizer. We are going to be able to constrain kubelets to getting only the pods that are on that kubelet.
Oh, wow.
With a list filter. With an actual subscription style watch, like a list watch. We would be able to filter so that the kubelet can only select on things with their scheduled node name. And that's pretty cool because it's based off of the contents of the thing. Like we build up a label selector cache. So very fun stuff.
Yeah, that's super cool. There were a handful.
Jordan Lidgett did all of the implementation work, and then reviews from like MoCon and the rest of SIGAuth. But the product of the designs and part of the whole effort is something that I've been really humbled to be a part of because these are some very smart people working to make our big distributed computer extensible in a generalizable way that is with granular authorization. So
yeah, there's a couple different blog posts that touch on parts of this, I think, on the Kubernetes blog. But a lot of that for me, like my interest in those things comes from more of a multi-tenancy model within a single Kubernetes cluster itself. And what those things can eventually do with saying like this team can install this operator that has these CRDs, these things, but they can't, do this after it's installed or like things like that.
It'll be a big deal when you're able to create a service account that like only operates on the things that the config objects that are actually in the cluster. It'll be much safer to deploy like multiple ingress controllers or something.
Yeah.
Other news, kernel module.
All right, so
Hugging Face, AI stuff.
Hugging Face, this is one that I actually came across a couple months ago, so we did not have a July meetup. I think I came across this at like the end of May while I was visiting up in Raleigh, North Carolina to the All Things Open meetup up there, which is great meetup. They were super welcoming. I went to see my good friend Christian Posta speak up there on some service mesh stuff. And they had somebody there presenting on some AI stuff that initially I was kind of like, I won't lie, I rolled my eyes and groaned a little bit of like, oh, great, more AI stuff. But this actually seemed cool because it's like community facing, where it's like you've got all these different people in the world that are like doing all sorts of crazy stuff with AI and machine learning right now. And a lot of them are doing it behind a closed door, and you only see when something gets published out, like here's this pre-computed model, that you can access and tie into through an API. But how that model made the data sets, the different tools, all of the different ways that you can do inference and things like that after you have a model and whatnot. Those things are super useful. Like they're super handy if you're getting started. And so this Hugging Face is like this community for people that are doing things around machine learning and artificial intelligence to share, whether it's data sets, models, tools, whatever. It almost seems like they were trying to do like a Helm sort of thing where you can suck in like these things from over here, like package and distribute these different things related to machine learning.
I definitely think of them as the Docker Hub of models.
Yeah. I think Docker Hub is probably a better way to think about that. But anyway, I thought it was kind of cool. So if you are looking to tinker around with some things and you don't happen to have this humongous, like crazy data set sitting around at your house, here's a place you can go to get started and find all sorts of different.
There are some pretty cute models on there that are very easy to work with. You can run them on an M1 Mac quite simply. I've actually done a little bit of that using Flox, which I'll talk about. But,
Sweet.
It's actually something that's a pretty interesting bit to talk about with regard to the Macs. On that topic, actually, and on the AI topic, before you jump to another community news post, I have one of my own that I just haven't added to the HackMD.
Mm-hmm.
Can you search GitHub? And then, just do a Google search, Joe, for a Maclama. It's MACLAMA. KLAMMA, I believe. Quite the name. And gosh, it's a project. No, this person looks cool, but it's not the thing. Oh gosh,
is it like llama as in the
I can do this. Okay, I got this. It is MAKLLAMA. My bad.
All right. Yeah.
MAKLLAMA. The contributors to this little project, that might honestly be a little facetious at this point, because they are speaking at Kubernetes Community Days Shanghai, and this project is so bonkers to me. They have forked Containerd to allow it to use OCI manifests to point to Ollama models. And those Ollama models then get executed directly on a Darwin kernel using accelerated via Apple's Metal API, which means that they need Containerd to pretend to run a container that is actually an inference Ollama process on like Apple Silicon running macOS. And then that they would register those nodes with an API server, the Containerd being orchestrated by a kubelet, a virtual kubelet running on Darwin. Virtual kubelet, Containerd forked, running macOS processes using OCI manifests to point to an Ollama model, so that your macOS nodes could join a Kubernetes cluster and be orchestrated by Kubernetes doing distributed inference. And like right now, it's like really hard to get GPUs. So like if you want to run GPU workloads with something that's powerful, you can buy like 3 $5,000 MacBook Pros, and that's like state of the art hardware. Like those machines have like 96 gigabytes of unified memory that can be addressed directly by the GPU. You could, yes, yeah, like Matt Melgard is saying, like kind of like SETI at home, but for AI. And yes, like I don't think the piece where the workloads would be coming from SETI is necessarily part of that, but you could have like SETI at home style infrastructure, but assembled with Macs, and then running whatever GPU code you want, which frankly could be quite innovative, especially with the Metal APIs and how powerful Apple Silicon is, as well as power efficient. I mean, they're quite quiet for what you can get out of them. So I thought this project was absolutely wild, and I need to play with it. And if you are in Shanghai, or you're going to KTD Shanghai, or you want to see those videos, or especially if you're a Chinese speaker, you should definitely follow up on that talk as well. I'm sure it's going to be a riveting presentation. Apple Silicon Kubernetes, it's a thing, but maybe not in the way that we thought. There's also a Darwin Containers project that's making a little bit of progress. So that's my news segment. Thanks for adding it to the hack.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah.
That's wild.
So next up, and this is one that I wish existed several years ago, kernel module management. So I don't know if you've ever done bare metal Kubernetes and had the need to run some specialized kernel modules for things like specific network adapters or accelerators or things like that. But trying to manage, especially with immutable OS and wanting everything to be exactly the same and not to have these snowflakes and things like that, it's kind of a pain in the butt. But this is essentially an operator, a Kubernetes operator, that provides some CRDs for kernel modules. And you can essentially apply them, and it will retrieve and apply that kernel module and enable that kernel module on the nodes that you specify, which is pretty slick.
So maybe throw away Puppet. You don't need Puppet anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've always tried not to use Puppet in the age of Kubernetes, but but yeah, if I can jam some Bash into a daemon set, like but yeah, this is a lot more formal version of that somebody's actually put a good. This is officially on the Kubernetes SIGs. So definitely a little more polished than some Bash and daemon.
This would be nice for like loading WireGuard on some really old kernels that you're stuck with, or yeah, like I don't know, installing some vendor kernel modules or whatever to be able to use some sort of hardware acceleration device.
Yep. And then this is one that has absolutely nothing to do with Kubernetes yet, but probably one of the slickest things I've seen in a while. Have you seen this, Leigh?
I have. I was a little intrigued at the capabilities. It's not fast yet.
It's pretty fast to me, but maybe we have different expectations. So this is WebVM. And essentially, this project, it's a serverless service, so on demand, to run a virtual machine-like experience, completely client-side, using WebAssembly in your browser. So this isn't running on a virtual machine in a cloud somewhere. This isn't running on a container somewhere else. This is literally running in my browser right now. Okay, so now your point's proven that it's not super fast.
It's not. I tried to do some network requests and a few things like that, and I think installed Flox on it.
So my curiosity, and I haven't had the time to sit down, is I want to see if I can join this to like a kind cluster, just because, not for any functional purpose, but like to see if they allow like WebSockets or something out. I know they do have some fairly restrictive outbound networking stuff, but this is a full network stack. This is for something quick and dirty that runs completely in your browser on your local machine. This is pretty slick to me.
What I did not try, but should work, is this is pretty much like Linux, but for progressive web apps. For a front end developer, buzzword bingo, it's a PWA, progressive web app. I should be able to just like add this to my home screen on my phone, I think.
Yes, yeah. This will run on like a tablet just fine. I do recommend having an actual keyboard, but like you can pull this up on your phone. And again, the address is just webvm.io. You can pull it up on your phone.
I think the local storage, if I remember correctly, I forgot if it's stable as well. Like if you write a file and you close the tab and then you open it again, I think it accesses the same local storage and your files are persistent, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, that's a good thing to test out, but it's probably going to eat a lot of news time. Very cool stuff, though. So it's stable. And then we have the Linux kernel booting from scratch for us again. And then here, and there's test.txt. Yeah, so I would imagine that is the local storage browser API. Being accessed by WebAssembly there. So
that's fun.
you must have some sort of rootfs that's serializing to bits inside of local storage.
That's wild.
So yeah, super fun, and it was great to test that on the fly here. But that's all for this month in Kubernetes. Other than somebody brought up earlier, I think it was Alan. I think we talked about this earlier in the year, but I'll mention it again. That for those of you that haven't heard, KubeCon 2025 will be hosted here in Atlanta. So yeah,
whoa,
nice.
So that'll be fun too. I will definitely make it to that one.
Time. I think I've done. This is my third meetup with all of you now.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
So come KubeCon 2025. If I can't get out there before then, we got to be doing a Cloud Native Atlanta.
Yeah, Sig Cooper karaoke and Sig Boba.
Atlanta.
Yeah, I've got some
Sig
spots.
Boba.
I've got some spots.
Nice.
Excellent. Yes. We'll see if it needs to end up being talking to your spots about catering, because
Yeah.
Sigboba is starting to get kind of big. And we need to make sure to keep it in a space that feels chill vibes. This is my side project right now. I can already tell you that like we can confirm that Salt Lake City is for sure happening. But details and all that. If there's anybody, community members who are listening on the recording, anyone on the call right now, anyone in the room who like wants to help out with Salt Lake City, feel free to PM me, and we can see if there's a useful way to contribute with like volunteering or logistics. So yeah,
Cool.
love Sigma.
Yeah. And then the only post that I saw about jobs was from Alan Diaz in the chat. He is at JP Morgan Chase, and he said they just opened a tech office in Buckhead, which is here in Atlanta. And at the moment, he's one of the only Cube engineers there in the Atlanta area. But he posted a link to jobs, so it seems like they're hiring. So if you're looking for a job in the Atlanta area, feel free to check that out. I'll grab that information and post it in the notes a little bit later. But all that being said, we're going to wrap up this month in Kubernetes, and then it is my pleasure to introduce who you've all already heard speaking, Leigh, a good friend, and he's going to be talking to us about some new stuff. And I won't say any more. I'll let him take it away from here.
Yeah. Also, just a quick question from Alan. I shouldn't just assume that this like inside joke of unofficial special interest groups is a thing, but Sig Boba is one of these unofficial SIGs that we have. Like there's a Sig Beard, a Sig Bouldering. We have Sig Friday, which is just people who are glad that Friday's finally here. And then we just all sit and talk about it. It ended up turning into an entire Discord. But yeah, so is there a Sig Pi? Like for Python? Sig R packages for all things Sig. Yeah, I guess we need like a way to collect all of these unofficial SIGs. I agree.
I was thinking Sig Pi like Key Live.
Sig Meta. Sig Meta. Yeah, there we go. Sig Meta can be our SIG for collecting all of the unofficial SIGs. And this has actually ended up being a trivia question at the Contributor Summit is what are name some unofficial SIGs. So but the rule is that you have to have at least had real meetings. But Sig Boba is an effort that's super close to my heart. Personally, like I just don't ever really drink. And a lot of times, like the most socially valuable place to be at a conference is the after party. When you have a 10,000 person conference, like some of the most recent KubeCons have tended to be, there's just like a lot of people with different incentives, and like you want to meet folks for sure. And we even have like the outreachy program and the diversity scholarship. So we have plenty of folks who are like 18, 17 years old, like coming to KubeCon. And so, like I think with that many people coming to a city, like I'm totally cool having a dance party. And like Sig karaoke is great. Like I love Sig karaoke. They're almost like kind of has to be alcohol at a late night Sig karaoke event, right? And I'm totally good with that. It's a fun time. I personally don't drink, and karaoke is my drug. But I'm Filipino, right? But yeah, Sig Boba is a place for people to come and have a fun after party, connect with people on day one, and there's no other purpose than just creating a fantastically good time for veterans and new people in the community to come together and make friends. So if you come to KubeCon, physically, you can be almost certain that there will be a Sig Boba event on the day one of the conference, not day 0 or day 2. And that we are also trying to scale out the initiative to help the whole scene just like have more options for people. So Sig Boba. But yeah, I'm Leigh. And I'm going to jump into the presentation right now. We had a wonderful news section here. And my news is that I've pivoted to working with a 23-person team right now. And you'll see in just a moment when I'm pulling up my slides that the quality of the work that this team does is something to be excited about. I'm working on this is our old branding right now, but Flox. And the shirt is Flox Hearts Nix because we do. Nix is actually older than Kubernetes, and it is a package manager, a package manager designed for Unix systems. But you might not have heard or used much of Nix, except for like maybe just sort of being exposed to it a little bit. Like, oh, it's this thing maybe for functional programming nerds who are sick of like non-determinism in Linux, or it's this thing for people who use ThinkPad T480s and they want to have i3 as their window manager, or
I feel seen.
for high frequency traders who have access to the highest technology and get paid way too much money. But like Nix sort of maybe feels a little bit like I don't know, like there's like a religion that I have to adopt, and then I will be enlightened when I'm senior enough, right? And that's why Nix has felt really appealing to me. I've wanted to become authoritative. Also, we use this thing called Rust, the Rust programming language, and I'm starting to pick it up. And so these feel like really nerdy technologies. But I am going to start to pull up this presentation. I'll share my screen and talk to you a little bit about why our mission is so exciting to me as somebody who cares about tools being usable for folks. All right. I think what is the shortcut these days for this? Oops. Here we go. Share. No, not share. That's my email if you want to hit me up. Leigh@flox.dev. Slideshow. That's what it is. Cool. So stacking and sharing toolboxes with Flox. I'm like trying to figure out how to express how powerful what we're working on is. And what we're trying to attack is like the pain. And so if we just tool it back and like I'm just gonna talk very basics about software and what it means to like put a software environment together just so that the pictures draw into the story a little bit. So software is built on like all this stuff, right? Like we're writing code and then we need some tools so that we can actually do our makery things to make our software stuffs. And then we want to pull in other people's code as fancy little widgets inside of our code. So we're going to need to like go and call out and link against libraries. And then we've maybe got frameworks, which are sort of like bigger collections of tools that end up being like the software development kit. And then we need our special configurations for our linters and our CI tools and the thing that configures Git to do Git hooks with my special commit messages, and also some weird thing that needs configuration for like the deploying tool that my company wrote 5 years ago or 15 years ago. Then we're still using it because it's the way that our company works, right? And so like we need all of this stuffs to work on our software thing so that we can make something actually useful in the world. Hopefully we're working sometimes with a pretty even large team of people. We build our software thing. We're trying to hopefully make the world a little bit of a cleaner garden than before. Hopefully. There's other incentives too, like doing capitalism really good. Um, and so each one of our things, actually, we find ourselves hacking on a bunch of different bits, right? And I've got like this code for all of these different projects, but they need different bits of stuffs, right? And so you're like, yeah, Leigh, I mean, like that's what I use a package manager for. Great, we're on a good track. It's kind of annoying collections of stuff because like then you have to go and sometimes use multiple tools to then assemble your other tools. And so you get really annoyed and you're running into this friction and then you want to collaborate, right? And so you make some friends and they're like, "Oh, I would like to try and do that thing." And sharing how you've gotten to this state, is really difficult. And so containerization sort of was like the like the highest level thing that you could have done to take what is sometimes effectively a very messy tool set right? And then that we could sort of add some structure with the brilliant layer cake analogy, right? Or like maybe you're building up pizzas of container images. And then now we get a little bit of reproducibility, and then we get something that we can share. And we can sort of maybe restrict ourselves mostly to Linux x60, XCD664. And then maybe you then use some other tooling to do manifest list stuff. And then, but now you're like kind of working across different architectures and you're still probably only doing Linux. So then you're not going to cross the OS gap. So, but let's just pretend everything is Linux. And with that, we can solve a lot of problems. And the interface that comes out on the other end is pretty magical. I mean, like I have loved Docker more than anyone I know. I've spent way too much time running bash one-liners to do weird Docker stuff. Um, and so then we get into sharing and then reproducibility, right? So you can shove a bunch of stuff into an OCI manifest, and you sort of get to freeze the thing in time. But what if you want to actually recompute how you got there? Right? So reproducing the past is pretty tough, actually. And then promising that the things that you get from public sources in impure ways will also be there for you to reproduce in the future is even kind of like a separate problem. And so we wanted to start addressing this with a mission that if we built this thing called Flox, on top of Nix, that we could start to get the world to help make more reproducible, consistent things that let you work and collaborate with people across platforms, across operating systems, across CPU architectures, in all of your projects, specifically for your projects. And for hopefully most of time. I mean, all of time, that seems grand. You know, the universe is going to be something that probably outlasts me and probably my computers. But so I mentioned the package manager thing earlier. And also I'm going to try and like zoom out and maybe just to like be able to check the chat just in case people want to interact. Which I'm realizing now I'm fighting the chaos of my mind as is represented in my desktop window manager. How do I get to the chat when I was screen sharing? I've done something here, and then I click this button. Cool. Okay, yeah. So room is muted, but if anyone ever wants to chat about stuff, you just put it in the chat window, and then I will check it.
Hey, Leigh.
Oh yeah, hey, what's up?
Yeah, sorry. I can mute the room from my laptop, but I can't unmute it from my laptop, so it took a second. But I think if you hover up towards the top of your screen with your pointer, it should drop down a bar where you can...
I'm reading the chat right now.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, I missed you. Yeah,
cool.
I'll interrupt and try to bring anything up to your attention from the chat.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. That's so helpful. I'm like just like I wish I could be there with all of you online and all of you in the room and all hang out. And instead after this, I'm gonna go hang out with some Ruby folks and get out of my comfort zone.
Ruby?
But oh no, Matt, you're sick with the flu. Well, actually, then I'm really glad that we're in this hybrid format so that because like don't come to the meetup with the flu for sure. But now you can because of the power of the internets. Isn't this great? Cool. So package management, right? Okay, let's try the mission. Maybe we can build some stuff on top of Nix because we know a bunch of smart Nix people, and we can make the world a little bit more reproducible. And then maybe like get some of the schlepping and the toil of the software process like a little bit out of the way. So most package managers. I was talking with Ross, who's our head of marketing. He's our manager. He's a total geek. He's a maker. He's an AI nerd. He's just really cool. And we were talking. I realized this thing. You know, we were talking about containers, and like I put on my Kelsey Hightower thinking cap for a second. You know, and it's like the history of virtualization. Like at first, we were racking and stacking servers. And then the servers, those machines, they did things, right? Like this server is going to serve my website. This server is going to build my C application. This server is going to be my email server where I talk with my friends, right? And so these machines do a thing. And then virtualization happens, so we could have a bunch of big servers and we could carve it up into little pieces. At first, it was just your personal computer. Now we got 5 computers instead of 1. And then we were like, wait, there's like 500 computers in this data center, but maybe we could like carve it up into orchestrated virtualization, right? And so we could virtualize the machines and their tasks. And eventually stuff got so complicated and people started doing SOA and microservices, and we needed the application abstraction. So the container is the application abstraction. But something hasn't happened here, right? As we've branched out into working on multiple things, we are at our workbench and we want to work on our projects that we love. But our operating system still manages packages as a machine-centric abstraction. And so you look at this picture that we have and the story here and the way that it's painted in the context of a single machine that does one thing, right? Or maybe, you know, a single machine that is like a multi-user system that everyone is sharing, right? We can get everyone to agree to use the same libraries in user lib. We can, or Unix system resources lib, I should say, right? And this is where the FHS came from, right? The file system hierarchy. And so that standard lets us put our binaries. And then when we get the package manager, something is either installed or it isn't, right? But the and like if you want to remove stuff, you got to go and like look for it and find it and then get it out of there. Right? So the power of Nix is that we create a special kind of store that is flat. It's actually a lot like the ideas of container layers, right? And that we would be able to take the file system hierarchy standard and then carve it up into pieces that are then measured by the some hashing strategy. Usually it's input hashed, sometimes output hashed, sometimes binary hashed. So in the container world, we usually use content hashes for everything. But in the Nix world, we'll typically hash the inputs of a system. And so how we get these bits to put into the Nix store, we then build a bunch of things on top of so that it becomes reproducible. And then each line in the store, we can do some really fancy, super clever symlinks, and then their packages can also have a hook, like you can script a little bit, and then you can mess with environment variable tables. And the end is that we actually achieve, I think it's honestly kind of bold, but this is a kind of package level virtualization. And it almost lets you virtualize the Linux user space without help from the kernel. That we would only really rely maybe on really common Unixy and maybe even POSIX stuff. And that we can assemble environments that then become somewhat isolated from each other. But this is cool. So Nix is more than just making those packages, right? And so it sort of starts to hint at this thing called like a build system. And I'll show you what our Nix environment for Flox for actually building it looks like. Right now, like we don't use Flox for Flox yet. And so it's going to be like a nice contrast. But it is nothing like a traditional package manager, right? You think of apt install or npm install, which would be like a programming language ecosystem package manager. And Nix just doesn't behave that way. It's a fully declarative system. You edit files and then you tell Nix to realize things, and then you get versions of stuff and you have to filter through them. And it also doesn't really tell you where you should put stuff or how you should define things. It's very much an open kind of box of please assemble the world the way that you see in the most pure manner. And so the problem that we are looking to solve here is let's build Flox on top and get a little bit of a place to play, to be a little bit less academic, to be a little bit opinionated, but still benefit from all of the collaboration that we do upstream for Nix, and then be able to advocate for the benefits and for the strategies and the ladder of climbing up towards purity and software determinism. Sounds like kind of big and scary words. We want to make it not scary. And so Flox makes it easy to manage a bunch of different developer environments. You can take all of these little cute, circles and squares and stuff and pair them up with your code. And then you can mix and match them and you can stack them together. And then you start to get the ability to do package management things. So Flox is like a package manager in that you can search for stuff, you can install, and you can uninstall things. But we add some new commands. Like why would you need to initialize something with your package manager? This isn't so different from creating a project with your favorite language. Um, at least a lot of the newer, more modern ones. I can't I can't I can't do anything but empathize, with people who like write system software in C. And in fact, we sort of have the biggest heart for you because I think you're feeling the most pain. Um, Modern languages, or like the modern generation, the newer generation of languages like Node.js, they have things like npm or pnpm or yarn, right? Which let you, within the context of a project, have a package JSON that allows you to list dependencies and then workflows with those dependencies. Rust has cargo and the cargo toml. Go has the Go module system after we had a bunch of community disagreement about how to use that. And then, like Ruby's got its gem file, which sort of helps you with a few things. Python pretends to not want to do things the old way and then gives you the virtual environment, which is the only way that you should do it. And so you start to get this ability to actually do a little bit of this package level virtualization, but you're mostly confined to your language ecosystem. And what we want to do with Flox is give you the ability to, for your project, for whatever languages, for whatever tool chains, libraries, frameworks that you are trying to pull in, operating system dependencies, C libraries that things are going to have to link out and depend on. We want to give you the benefits and the power of Nix. And in order to do that, you have to tell Flox that I want to initialize an environment with my project. So that's where that init verb is coming from. We have Flox init, Flox activate, and then a push and pull verb for a thing that we're testing and building out. But also push and pull is sort of synonymous with the Git push and pull workflow, and you can use Git kind of by itself. And frankly, I would recommend that as the workflow that makes sense for most people right now. So we've got new verbs. So let's not waste too much time talking, and let's actually get to the terminal and see what does it feel like. Let's see.
Hey, Leigh, real quick from the chat, Thomas was asking, was Flox at scale 21.x in Pasadena? With Tom Berkney speaking.
Yeah, funny enough. So like I joined the Flox team 6 or 7 weeks ago. And we've been chatting maybe only, 2.5 months. And I was at NixCon at Scale, at Scale 21, which was this year, and had no idea really that I was being surrounded by the Flox brand and amongst Flox as the community of experts was for NixCon were there. And so it really didn't even like register, and I didn't even go to their after party either. So like I did not see Tom's talk, but now I'm talking with Tom very regularly, and he was there and he was presenting, and that's absolutely right. If you were able to be there, that's super cool. Yeah, and yeah, Tom is awesome. He does like a lot of our labs work and like figures out like how things will actually work when practitioners touch stuff. And so naturally, that's a big part of my job, and we end up talking. I actually can share, like when Joe asked me to do this presentation, he's like, "Can you give us a preview?" Right? Like, because I know like you're just doing this thing, and my teammates, I cannot like understate, like they are very smart, and we are trying to do some big stuff. And I think we can actually change some stuff about containers across the ecosystem. And Tom is one of those people who like I can have that conversation with. He's a really cool person. So if you got to see Tom's presentation, that's awesome. But let me just show you the basics real quick. Hopefully, okay, I've got Alacrity here. So let's say I wanted to, I don't know, make a new environment. Let's do like some
Hey, Lee,
hacking.
are you intending to share a terminal right now?
Oh, can you not see? Yeah.
No.
Um, cool, cool, cool. Thank you. Have I not? Yeah, I've been sharing, right?
Yeah. We've seen the slides. Just can't see anything else other than
Okay,
the slides.
here we go. Perfect. I don't normally share an application window. I must have misclicked. I almost always share my desktop. So
Okay, yep.
thanks for the heads up.
Yep.
Yeah, you should be able to see now. Cool. Is it bright enough for you over there in the room?
Yeah, you could pop the font up a little bit more, but other than that, good.
I think I got you maybe one better. Okay, it's mainly a text size thing.
Correct. Yep.
Because I got
Brad, are you good with that size?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right, we're good here in the room.
I wonder if this would be maybe better. Is this better?
That's higher contrast for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, is that a little bit easier? Cool. We'll go with light mode. I guess I'm getting used to this idea that maybe not everything needs to be black. Obviously, our brand is so gorgeous. I'm sorry for anybody who's like sitting in their room in the dark right now, and I'm just like blinding your poor
Michael Lane says he is blind, gasp, it burns.
Cool. All right, Flox. Yeah. I think did I make a directory? Yeah, I made a directory called Meetup Hacking. So let's go ahead and just like Flox init an environment. Yeah, and then it's like, oh, cool. All right, why don't you just like start doing stuff? So I want to point something out here. Flox knows that I'm on ARch64 Darwin. This is because I'm on an M1 Mac. Remember from the community news that M1 Macs use Apple Silicon, and that Apple Silicon running on Darwin has access to like the Metal API. That'll be important later. But I think it's an important thing to point out here is that the Nix package ecosystem has like over 100,000 packages, separate things that you can install. A good percentage of the packages support 3 or 4 different OS and architecture combinations. Michael says I have no clue what Darwin and Metal API are. If I type uname A, this is actually the type of operating system kernel you're running. So if you ran this on a Linux machine, it says Linux. And when you run this on a macOS machine, you get Darwin. Darwin is the really nerdy term for macOS. It also, if you're an iPhone user, is running in your pocket. Darwin is the kernel that powers iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. It's built on a BSD Unix base. And Metal is a graphics drawing API similar to Vulkan or Direct3D from the Microsoft DirectX packages. So it's Apple's proprietary GPU language library thing. So Metal and Darwin. But yeah, so that's actually really good to go over. Thanks for asking that, Michael, because the benefit of using the Nix packages ecosystem, which is older than Kubernetes, is that we have a massive number of packages that have decent support cross operating system, cross architecture. And it's something that will only continue to get better as we invest into the packaging community effort, as well as, maybe more commercial efforts as Nix continues to grow. We just really want to gain more adoption. And so what that means is that if I say Flox search for Go, then when I install this Go package, then which comes from Nix packages, I can show you that on the website. I can say Flox install Go, and then this will start building up my Flox environment. And this environment is something that I can share with people. And that environment could work on not just my Mac on my operating system on my architecture, but that it would also work on a Linux server running an ARM chip in Amazon Cloud, and that it would also work on a Linux server running an x86 chip running in your basement, because it's an old ThinkPad that you know plugged into the wall forever. And so I'm on really slow hotel Wi-Fi, and I guess they probably upgraded the Go package, and I didn't stage my packages, so this should actually be much faster. But I think I'm only on 10 megs right now. Um, let's see. We've got some questions rolling in. Alan wants to know, can you give an example of one or two of the 100K Nix packages and its usage to give me a reference? Let's go ahead and see if my network connection is good enough to just roll up into Nix packages. Let's just search, and then let's go into here. Just because I'm currently doing an operation. So like, say I wanted some nerdy tools, right? Then I've got a bunch of Terraform related things. There's even like the language server over here if you want like Terraform hints for your weird nerdy Vim or Emacs or VS Code setup if you're like a normal person. And then like, now let's go ahead and dip our toes into the Cambrian explosion of Kubernetes related tools, right? kubevpn, kubexit, kubecm, kubent, kubespy, kubectx, Amit stuff. Here's kubectl, kubconfig. I wonder if somebody's packaged actually KUI yet. Oops. Doesn't look like KUI. That could be a fun community thing to do. If you haven't seen KUI, it's like a version of kubectl that is written in Node.js that you can access with your browser and do interactive things. Kind of like K9s, but again, for people who are slightly more normal than folks who actually like Kubernetes. All right, what we got? Yeah, subtle digs at Vim. Yeah, fair enough. Uh-huh. Is there a 90th percentile Flox packages for? I'm not familiar with this standard, Michael. Maybe send me a doc about it. I think I'm curious to learn what you're getting at there. And computer assisted dispatch. Yeah. Anyway, you can find that like I mean if you want nerdy stuff like a Rust replacement for cats that has syntax highlighting, you can find it on Nix packages. And so this is actually solves like a pain point on a Mac. And if you are, hipster enough to use Linux Brew, but also on a Mac with Brew, like the Brew package ecosystem does a really great job of making hipster nerdy tools easy to package and available for everyone. And you'll find as well that the hipster nerds have overlap with folks who want to publish stuff on Nix, kind of like anyone who tells you that they use Arch, by the way. So the AUR, the Nix package ecosystem, Brew, we got all the hipster stuff that you actually want. Like say you wanted Stern, the logtail thing. Maybe we can go ahead and install that, right? So multi-pod and container logtailing for Kubernetes, hipster Golang tool, it's there, right? And not only is it there, but it's packaged for Mac, for both architectures, x86 and ARM64, and for Linux for both ones. And you just install it with that one name. And so the result is, that, oh, okay, we did Flox install Go, and then Go is here. And then, like we want Flox install Stern. And I'm very kind of rapidly accumulating a list of packages, just imperatively using a normal workflow, like into an environment that I've alluded to is something that I can share. Also, I believe that would probably have been a cache hit there. You'll notice that if I actually were to make dir an environment 2, and then let's go into our Meetup hacking environment 2, and then Flox install Go and Stern. This should be like pretty quick. I think we have to the catalog service a little bit.
Do you not have to do another init for the new environment?
You're absolutely right, Joe. Let's just go ahead and thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, there you go. That was doing you saw how fast that was, right? It's because I already have those packages inside of my Nix store.
So
Now,
in layman's term for slow people like me, this is like homebrew with virtual environments, essentially,
I love
using
it. I
Nix
love it.
under
That's
the covers.
exactly what we have right now.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And it's homebrew with virtual environments and cross build support in the package ecosystem that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So it works on your weird M1 Mac, your 2018 Intel MacBook Pro, your Linux ThinkPad server, your Snapdragon X Elite Copilot AI is terrible laptop thing that Microsoft's trying to push on you with the really sweet ARM chip inside of a Windows laptop that has like a nice image signal processor area of the die for a beautiful webcam on a laptop that should absolutely exist. It works on your Linux servers. It works on that Dell PE 2950 that's sitting in the rack. Like it's just Flox install go, and it works everywhere. And like I don't know like how to describe like how much pain I felt. Like it gets even worse when you start to talk about like real system stuff, right? Like libsSL dev. What is the name of that package on Ubuntu, and what is the name of that package? I'm pretty sure they're not the same.
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah, perfect example.
Another thing that makes me that has made me a very particular kind of person sad. I've had an Oracle an Oracle Cloud free virtual machine, kind of reserved from that time that they did the promotion, and it runs the Ampere ARM processors.
Mhm.
And Linux Brew, I thought it was weird. They have no Linux ARM64 support. I would be very happy if somebody fixed that. But until then, Flox install is now a way for me to scratch that itch, right? I can get my hipster packages in an easy format on my weird Oracle Linux ARM machine. So, or if you have like Amazon Graviton instances, or whatever Google calls theirs. So, but yeah, now we have Snapdragon, so it's going to be the year of WSL2 on the desktop for ARM. But
Yeah.
all right. Anyway, this is what a Nix store looks like, right? There's a bunch of hashes and then like some human readable stuff with a bunch of package version names. So versions, that's interesting. Can we actually show the Go package? Oh, look, I have access to versions. This is actually something that we had to build a catalog service on top of the Nix caches for. It's not something that's available directly from Nix packages. You can use this really niche community website to figure out what derivation IDs. That's a big word. This is called the derivation. That's the content address or the input hash for this package. And you can like look up how these version numbers match. But if you use Flox, our catalog service lets you pull all that up. We've got some comments coming in. I'm just going to skim for things to talk about. Matt says I'll have to integrate this into my .files setup. I'll show you how to do that. Mike says I worked for a client and part of their workflow used Nix as a package manager where you set up an environment for a project, and when in that directory you had access to those tools. How does Flox differ or improve from that besides the version that you just showed? We have a direnv plugin. But that gets into the next verb. So let's just go back to our hacking thing. So I've actually installed these things, but what did I just get? So if I look actually at which stern, you'll see that I'm still a brew user. I still have stuff here, but it's coming from brew, and that's not what I would expect, right? Like Flox definitely didn't do anything in the homebrew directory. And that's because this environment is not active right now. But if I do a Flox activate, then I can get to a happy place, assuming I don't have any weird debugging things that I had configured from looking for problems before. So it says Flox activate, you're now using the environment Meetup hacking. Also, I've got a bunch of things kind of covering up my screen, but you'll see now that I've integrated this with my prompt. What I'm using right now is not a default prompt configuration. But if I activate maybe fish, this is a default thing. Like you do not have to configure fish. Flox is modifying the prompt here. I use power level 10K instant prompt, which doesn't let us do stuff. And so I wrote a little extension. If any power level 10K users are here, I can show you the snippet. But also my fish environment adds Python, but that was for a debugging thing that I was doing for one of our users in Slack. It's not related to the demo. But you'll see that I'm now in the Meetup hacking environment. So if I look for the Stern tool, you'll see that it's now coming. Oh, it's not coming from a Nix store. So we're doing a little bit of magic here. We've added a couple of symlinks on top of Nix to make things a little bit more. Normally, when you are in a Nix store, like if I pop over to our development environment for Flox and then increase my font size, and I say like which Git, this is just a plain Nix developer environment, so it's just a little bit less readable. But that is coming from a Nix store. We just made a symlink. So, I mean, if you really want some details here, I think that this directory, that's like in my current directory, that's .flox/run. You can see that it is actually a symlink to a Nix store on the machine, which is an aggregate of the environment. So,
Leigh,
yeah.
Before you were doing some installs and stuff before you activated the environment, if I'm paying attention correctly. So does that mean that you can like install into different, like you could pass like a command line flag or something to install into?
You can. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like right here, I'm in the Meetup hacking environment, but we made one earlier. So if I actually say Flox directory, and then yeah, it's just like these questions, like things that make sense that you would maybe want from your package manager, but you would never think that it would do that before. And then you add the virtual environment thing to it, and suddenly you're like, oh, like I can do stuff. Yes, you can absolutely do stuff, right? So like say that environment too, I like wanted to like install like kubectl or something. Hopefully we didn't do a release or whatever. Oh, sorry, this is the activate environment. You know what? This is good feedback. Flux install. Maybe did I put the flag in the wrong place? I'm pretty sure that this was a thing. Yeah, it is a thing. Yeah. Any of the verbs that operate in environments in the Flux flag, there is a -- directory flag.
Okay.
And -d is short for that. So yeah, here I'm installing kubectl, to a directory that I'm not in. And that's actually a key feature. So Matt, you mentioned I need to add this to my shell environment. That's what a cool idea. I think I have probably an example in my ZSHRC here. Oh, this syntax highlighting is not great. That is very hard to read. What can I do about that? This will be dark mode.
That works.
And I think, yeah, there's Duran. Did I do it somewhere else? I did do it somewhere else. Let's get out of here. I think it's actually in my Etsy profile, D custom Flox sh. I had this disabled. Sorry, I was doing some debugging, so I actually put this in a different place. But this is a perfectly reasonable place to put this as well. It's just in my shell profile that's activated by bash and ZSH. The Flox activate. This is not the command. This is the command. Sorry, friends. I'm like you can tell I'm in like DevRel mode, like fixing all of the broken stuff. So Command V, I'm just checking for Flox. This is actually just a safety thing. But this is the thing that you add to your shell RC. Eval, and then you Flox activate, and then you pass a directory to ensure that it's doing like your home one, or if you want to put it in a Git repo and put it in a special path or whatever. The thing that we put in your home environment is called the default environment. So if I actually do a Flox list, here I'm not like where we were activating. This is like another term. You'll see I have just stuff by default. Think that pool, not metrics. Yeah, this. So I didn't mean to hide that. I want to show all. Yeah. You'll see that my default environment is there. And cool. This is how you activate it in your shell. This does something slightly different. So just before we get too off track here, I activated environment, right? I'm in the Meetup hacking environment. I can type exit, and then now I have left the shell. So you can see my shell is telling me that I had that open for 6 minutes, right? Sorry for the 6 minute diatribe. And then if I want to go back into it, I'm here. You could even, start to stack some stuff, right? Like I have maybe let's do a fun one. G Cloud. Oh gosh. Yeah. So like G Cloud, I actually have uninstalled G Cloud from my machine. It is no longer on my machine in the contexts that I work with. G Cloud has its own build of Python that it's bundled with and all that. Some genius decided, gosh, this makes me feel really gross when G Cloud Python conflicts with the other Python stuff that I'm doing on my machine, or it has like a weird version issue, or there's drift or whatever, and then I have to do like weird Google searches to make it work. And it's just like the Google Cloud team does a fantastic job, but it is a frankly very complex hydra of a product that has modules and all kinds of stuff built to it, and then it can go and fetch Go binaries. Like it's its own beast. So there's a Nix package that's repeatable and cross-arch for G Cloud, and I can make a Flox environment that I can activate that just has my G Cloud stuff in it. And that's really nice. In fact, you'll even see because I'm using power level 10K that it's telling me that now I'm in my Google environment when I'm typing G Cloud. But yeah, that's again.
Use G Cloud outside of Google Cloud Run, like.
Yeah, it's not something that I really need access to all the time, especially like if like the service that I was using wasn't available anymore, then I'm really going to stop using it, right? So, but you'll notice that I have stacked up 3 different environments, right? So I can list my home, my default environment. I have git lfs, I have nixtop, and I have the toml command line tool. And then from my Meetup hacking directory, here we just have Go and Stern at these particular versions, which auto-resolved. And then I can list my G Cloud environment, and you can see that I've got the Bitwarden command line tool to do a little bit of secrets management, and then I've got Google Cloud SDK. And I have access to all of this stuff right now if I echo my path. And then you can see that Flox has actually readably managed my path in a way where sbin and bin are available sort of in the order that I've stacked up my environments. And similarly, I can start exiting the shells, and now I'm popping out of that access. And so I can sort of layer up my workbench. And so like, I guess like back to pretty pictures just for one moment, which I feel like I have pretty pictures on. Oh no. Sorry, that's just, this is my desktop environment these days. When you unplug from a monitor, just very unreasonable stuff happens, right? Oh, and I did that again. Oh my gosh, Zoom is all in my way. I should have brought a second monitor on the road. Sorry, friends. Cool. So like, when you just instead of like having all of your tools like everywhere, and this is actually an analogy that's useful later, like instead the madness, I would like to get it to a place where when I need G Cloud, I can reach up for that box that's right above that orange shop vac, right? And I can reach up for that thing and I can put it on my workbench while I'm using my X tool and while I'm logging into Kubernetes to chat with my friends, or maybe use Flux to do something more sensible. I haven't addressed the fact that I work for a company called Flox. Yeah, and I'm still, you'll see me doing the Project Lightning talk and the maintainer track talk in Salt Lake City for Flux. And we're maybe even gonna have a booth there. So I'll be the Flox person now. Anyway, I'm sorry. But yeah. So I want to make sure. Let's just get through the rest of stuff that we're hacking on. I'm really quickly losing track of where my windows are all. Oh, that's right. I'm in light mode. Cool. So, this is sort of the basics, right? I'll show you one more bit here on this, which is I can Flox activate, and then we have this -p flag. And remember how I was talking earlier about how the behavior inside of the shell RC is actually a little bit different? It's because we look to see if you have a TTY. If you're not in an interactive terminal, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to spawn a long-lived shell. It's just going to hang up whatever script you're running. But you can, and so what we do is we don't spawn a shell. We inline the activation, and we figure out what shell you are in. If you're in fish, if you're in ZSH, if you're using TCSH, I believe, or just like POSIX-SH mode bash or whatever, or ash, then like we are able to produce a script with our Rust binary that activates your shell without creating a separate PID that you can exit from, and it won't lock you up. And so you can just eval this. But if I pass this special flag that's actually not in the, I think it's print script, or -p is the short version, then you'll see that I am active in the environment and exiting this. It's modified in my shell. I have access to that Meetup hacking version of Go and Stern. And when I exit this, it actually kills the terminal. And so that is a way for you, and it works to just like stack as well. Like you can activate a bunch of environments. That is called our in-place activation. So I just wanted to show you that. It's actually not something that we document in the product right now. It's more of a debugging tool for an automatic behavior that happens in a shell RC. But we're working on like, should that be a thing that you use? I don't know. Maybe go download Flox just like you have through and bin and I don't know, kubectl crew plugin manager and all of the other binary things that you've done, and play with it and let me know. How do you want to activate things? Do you want nested shells, or do you want to like build up a shell in place? That's a thing. Oh gosh, 20 new messages. Friends, we are just having an inspiring hacking session here. All right. Homebrew our virtual environments. I feel like I'm walking into the middle of a conversation trying to figure out what the group of people are talking about. Hi, friends. My name is Leigh. What are we talking about? Integrate this into the dot file setup. Does Flox, not Flux, Flox, cache versions? Can I switch versions super quick, like TFS switch or TF switch? Yes. Remember how it was like Flox show go, and then this was the thing. So this is going to dir and activate a thing potentially. I'm just going to quit that for a second and go back home, and then let's get over to hack Flox and Meetup hacking, and then increase our font size here. Flox install, Flox show go. Flox install. This is a key feature, right? Why would we have a catalog that shows you versions if you couldn't install versions? It's exactly as you expect. You take that exact string that's there. There's nothing wild or significantly different about it, and then you can say, go at actually, you know what? Flox list -d. I have a Go environment, and it's actually pinned to a specific version of Go. Right, so this is already in one of my environments, and I'll Flox install Go at that. And oh, I already had this. Yeah, so I have a version of Go. It's modern. Right now, our UX for this is this, and then this. Resolution failed, constraints too tight. This is because stuff that I have, that version of Stern, it's too new to be linked in the same environment, the same package group as Go 121.7. So I can do this, and then I can install. Do I have other things in here? Ooh, sorry. There we go. What
Wait,
am I
you need
doing?
a Flox in it?
Yep, you're right. Thank you. That's hitting my huh.
Maybe
That's
list
weird.
the versions ago again. Was 121.
Oh yeah. Maybe I just mistyped something. Is that the thank you, friends. I feel like I'm going a little bit wild here. Oh,
Yeah, there's no 121.7.
yeah. Where did I get that string?
There's a 120.7, but not a 121.7.
Huh. Okay, anyway. Thank you. Anyway, that I don't have that cached. Um, that's strange. I feel like I'm a little bit like I went a little bit crazy there. Um, or just a like losing my because didn't I get that string from something?
I think you typed it.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I can't
Okay.
remember.
Yeah. Let's so it's that's 121.7, right? And like if I were to
Did they
list
unpublish a package from Nix or something?
oh I guess I could do that. Oh hmm um
Is there a lag? Like, was it published today?
um I mean I used that package quite a while ago. Go mod. I mean it's right here in my Nix store. Go 121.7. I wonder if it might be a bug in our catalog service because it's kind of new that um maybe we had discovered a page of this basically like we build our catalog from the repositories that drive how Nix packages is built. And we build it up into pages so that you can search all of the versions within a particular time frame. It's like the last I think 3 years, just to keep it in a realm of somewhat usable software. We can make it longer in the future, but yeah, I that feels weird to me. I'll file that as a bug because I feel like I used Flox to get that thing. So, but yes, the you can see that all of that stuff is in my Nix store, right? So if for whatever reason our catalog service was actually resolving to that derivation, then yeah, you would be able to switch the versions back and forth really easily. Let's see. I have other Go versions in here, 122.5, 122.2, 122.3. So all of those I should be able to switch in between quite quickly if I were to
How would you use this to build a container?
1.22.5.
How would you use this to build a container?
Then you can see that that happens instantly. And then I can uninstall Go and then go back to installing 122.3. And I thought that was in my Nix store. That should have been, again, might be having a catalog lookup issue there or something. So that might be a bug that we have to look into. I'm also apparently pulling stuff from the network already, so I'm just going to stop this because I know I'm on hotel Wi-Fi. So thank you for dealing with my sort of weird set of circumstances. We
Nix builds better container images than Docker Because
Cool. So anyway, I'm honestly like loving the chat, but we haven't even touched on a really massive idea here. So before we're rambling for too long and I feel like I lose everybody mentally, I just I really want to ask folks to just one more thing. Just one more thing and then we're kind of done with the big ideas, I think. Right? And then the picture starts to get more clear. Um, so everything that we've been doing, it makes a manifest. And this is sort of what a bare bones manifest would start looking like if you had nothing in it. But if we go to the Meetup hacking and we say Flox edit, this will show. Oh, I uninstalled everything. Let's just go into the env2 one. There we go. Right. So the install section of this manifest has Ghost and kubectl in the env2 environment. You can see now I can start setting environment variables. Right. So like I could be like, I don't know, like I think it's a go path. Right. And then I would make a string here. This is a TOML file. It's not a YAML file. Rustations tend to like TOML. And frankly, TOML is a little bit of a simpler format, so it's not as prone to things like the Norway problem, which it sounds like something like I would like know about current affairs, but it's actually just when you type like capital NO and it's actually a Boolean, right? So TOML doesn't kind of have those things going on, or like a commit SHA that's unquoted accidentally turning into a number instead of a string. So um, yeah. Anyway, like I could set the go path or unset it or something like that with vars. And then we've got hooks so you can install or so you can run some scripts or do something interactive, and you can start to hook into profile. Common, you can also like run shell specific things here. So I can do things that only happen for fish with fish syntax and options. So the systems that we support by default are all four, but you can start to pare this down, right? If you want to build environments that are very specific to Linux or very specific to a Mac, right? If you're running things that, like, say you're operating on Llama models that only do metal accelerated things, and like you have to use specific features of metal, or you need to use, specific Vulkan 3D stuff that doesn't run on a Mac right now, and you could start to like pair yourself into particular APIs based off of your systems and architectures. And the manifest, the big idea here is that this is the product of my imperative actions. And similarly, I can do declarative stuff if I knew how to use my editor properly.
So Leigh, this is giving me vibes of like a brew file, like a souped up brew file.
Yes.
Maybe. And in this, I see that this seems to be scoped to a specific environment. But can you have one of these that like creates multiple environments or?
No. Like if you were wanting to make this fan out, would you be trying to like compose it to produce like I don't know, multiple Go repositories or something, or
I'm thinking about it, and I'll try to make this brief. But like, say in my environment where we're building like a public cloud offering, and we have like the general public cloud offering that has certain tools associated with it, and then my team specifically builds a managed Kubernetes service, and that environment's going to have some specific tools to it. So I'm thinking of at least two layers where you have like general cloud development tools and then managed Kubernetes service development tools, where I would potentially have two of these.
You would have, two manifests.
Okay, okay,
and
all right.
you would activate them when you need them.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, so like my Meetup hacking environment here. Also, you'll notice when I edited that file, Flox, as part of the Flox edit workflow, like went and built that environment and then got kubectl kubectx for me.
Yeah.
packages, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's why Flox edit is a thing and why it makes a temp file. It's just like trying to help you, but you can also edit that file. It's inside of .flox,
Yeah.
which is, there's a cache directory. There's a lock file. So this is how we start to get some reproducibility. You'll notice if you're like a JavaScript developer or a Go developer, that this has some feel to like Go mod or npmi. And that's very intentional. This is like something that every developer becomes incredibly familiar with. And then yeah, the manifest toml, that's the file that Flox edit is actually writing. So you can just edit that in your editor, and then when you use Flox, then things will happen to update your environment. So, but yeah, I think like you would just go and activate your in your cloud team scenario, right? Like maybe you have public cloud tools like gcloud or AWS CLI, things that are notoriously dependency heavy and like call out to C libraries and have their own versions of programming languages bundled into them. Now it's its own reproducible Nix package and it's cross operating system. So it works on, WSL2, Linux and Mac. And then, yeah, like when you want those kubectl tools, like to also be pulled in, then you can, operate on Kubernetes. And then when you're not on the public cloud stuff, you can just get out of that. And then you're not accidentally going to use some tools in some raw directory that's going to reach out to AWS because it's not even in your path, right? We've virtualized the user land, or the like your virtual environment. It's not even possible to talk to AWS anymore. So if you, had some super secret project, like some groups of people do, and you needed it to work on this very particular security compliant, infrastructure that's, I don't know, processing the queries of people's mobile phones, then that context of CLI would be safe in that manner, because there's no way that you would talk to the wrong infrastructure. You don't even have the binaries. And that sort of gets back to that garage workbench picture, right? Like we want something that looks more like Ross's garage, where there are neat toolboxes that I'm pulling out when I only work on my fine electronics or when I only work on my woodworking stuff, versus like when I need the table saw out, and then like I don't need the table saw when I'm soldering, right? So like let's not hurt ourselves. Cool. Yeah, Flox writes manifests. I think there's an example one here. One important idea here is I should update this slide. I think this is actually supposed to be looking for Darwin instead of ARM64. But say we like installed Podman and Builda, then if you're on a Linux machine, like these tools, like they have access to Linux namespaces and stuff. But now like the abstraction is breaking down because I'm installing tools that are depending on Linux ABI. So maybe if you had Kimu, then the tool that's built for Darwin can start up some Podman machines or something, and this works. It's so we have an escape hatch here that says like, hey, for this package, we only install it for these systems, and then the package path is Kimu. And then, here we're using the vars to, set debug so that we can contribute some, I don't know, logs back to upstream or something. That, yeah, we support, these two things. So this is a manifest. You can edit it declaratively, and this is designed to be checked into your Git repository. So yeah, honestly, we've done a lot of stuff, right? And frankly, like we've done a lot of showing like how things work. Let's see. Matt wanted to know if we catch versions. Flux files are similar to things like brew files, package.json. We've got, yeah, fixing source code on the fly, Python virtual environment comparisons, readable path symlinks instead of the awful Nix package paths. Yeah, that's a really nice UX choice for debugging your path, because it's just, it just feels like you understand that somebody in their shell, when they have a path problem, is probably already frustrated, right? So let's make the path readable. And then it's also stable. So like those paths, even though we can like mess with what derivations are actually active in your Nix store, the user facing path is stable using the Flox kind of opinion of like where to put Nix stuff, so that you can reliably get to it and navigate to it from your Git repo. So repo level dependency activation. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way. If someone wants to know if your shell level is changing when you stack environments, yes, your shell level does change when you stack environments. Great question, JP. I need a Flox capacitor. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of swag opportunities there. And maybe we could actually show up to KubeCon with Doc Johnson wigs and goggles. That would be awesome. Then we could be Joe. Yeah, FL star X contributor. Yeah, Flox and Flux, that would have it covered. I think Christian from the Argo project recommended that I just run sed s/global replace for U with O. I saw absolutely no problems with doing that. Don't see 127. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we've had such an amazing debugging session here, friends. So thank you for coming on that journey with me. I think I'm gonna zoom out because we've honestly been in this hacking session for so long, and I just want to talk about like where we're going and like the big picture, and then let's just try to wrap this up in a way where like the experience is something that we can all hack on. Um, so like I have this open. If this is repos Flox/CLI. The repo is called Flox. I'm just in a subdirectory. I'm just gonna make a new tab here, and you'll see that I'm kind of blocking. That's because Flox currently is built by a collection of super smart people that we've found, and then also people contributing to Nix. We use Nix to make sure that that Flox is reproducible, and so you'll see that my power level 10K is telling me that I'm in a Nix impure environment. And yeah, like I made that new directory, and you'll see that dir-end was activating here. It usually takes around like 10 seconds for the Flox development environment. This is not using Flox. It's using pure Nix. And I just wanted to show you that the code for Flox, it's a GPL v2 repo that's available on GitHub, and that you can hack on it if you're using this thing, right? We are a Rust code base. I'm having so much fun. Been submitting my first couple Rust patches as I find things that should maybe be tweaked to make the user experience better. Or I don't know how, but the first problem that I ran into was a signal handling DNS issue. Yeah, I was almost in disbelief, but yes, it was DNS. And so, I had to write a patch for that, and I've got some stuff that is getting ready to merge here. But yeah, we've got a Rust repository. It's like a real sophisticated thing that's built by smart people who know Rust well. And like if you've been trying to get into Rust, this is a really cool code base. We're obviously a small team and stuff, but we want to be a community of practitioners who are able to rapidly iterate on the thing. So the thing is simple. It's well factored. It does a bunch of stuff. I haven't even talked about the features like when you activate inside of a Python environment for the first time, it like does a requirements text parsing for you and then like makes a virtual env. Or I haven't talked about like the way that like we auto do things when in like a Node.js environment, that just have good opinions so that you can get bootstrapped and using Nix on your project. But like all of that stuff is in here. And if you've got a special thing that you want to do, then you can do that in here. And some of it is even just shell scripts, right? But then it's like orchestrated by this async, Tokyo powered Rust binary. And we use a Rust Lake somewhere in this repo. Oh my gosh. .nix. Here's our flux.nix, and then our, so like nix kind of, ooh, it's not what I'm looking for. We want, so like this is well vendored out. Where am I in the tree? Default nix. And I'm not getting to the thing that I want. All right, I've sort of lost my mental model at this point because I'm kind of at the end of the day. I was gonna show that like our top level Nix build is like kind of not that simple, and our goal is that we're building build the way that you sort of already know how to do it, but then giving you the ability to turn it into Nix and bring purity, and then even mix impure stuff with pure stuff. Again, really nerdy thing to say. But go check out the Flox repo. We actually do a lot of our roadmap stuff, all of our issue tracking, and our technical design stuff right in GitHub issues. There's an interesting one that is like us refactoring activation even further. Like we're like about halfway through an activation refactor that is improving performance. Talks about a lot of details of tracking subshells, and there's like when you're working in an environment, you have multiple shells. So then like, what if you want a service to run? You probably need to do a watchdog process, and like maybe we should move the optional metrics thing into the watchdog process, and like lots of interesting bits. It kind of reminds me of when we were building Docker, like what that felt like. That repo was open, and like there was cool, really nerdy Unixy stuff happening in that repo, in a cool programming language that people didn't know. And so like it's a great opportunity to work on something that's actually substantially valuable to the development workflow. It's something that you could use yourself. When you break it, maybe you can go and trace and fix it. I've had a lot of luck actually finding exactly what I need when I run into a weird bug. So that's our repo. Go check it out. And it might be your first experience using Nix. You can use the Nix development shell, which is in our README, or if you just turn on direnv allow, if you're already using direnv, it'll automatically put you into a place where you can develop right on Flox with the power of Nix. So again, not without complexity. Our goal is that one day Flox will be built with Flox itself. So, but yeah, isolation and layering. Like kind of zooming out. Like I think that we're in a great place as developers with things like dev containers. But like the decision to like fully depend on the Linux ABI and the ability to make system calls and open up namespaces and C groups to isolate your processes. What we're trying to do is create like the minimum viable thing that takes the frankly like very messy development processes and entire like history of legacy of the way that we've done Linuxy, Unixy stuff, BSD, Nix, whatever, right? And we're trying to make something that supports a workflow and an artifact that runs most places and can do most things. But like, what if we want to just use our computer, right? And what if you own a Mac? Well, like there's certain limitations here. I am going to Flox activate, and instead of doing a directory, I am going to do a -R, and I'm going to activate. My friend is Ross. He's the head of marketing here, and again, a total nerd. And Ross has been doing so much exploration on all of the Gen AI, ML, data pipeline stuff, and he's getting good at it. Now, I'm not good at this stuff, right? But he has pushed an environment to Flox Hub, and I am kind of not, a great internet citizen, but maybe I would go and see what this actually is before I activate it. So here's the manifest. You can see he's done a bunch of work just to do some Python virtual env stuff inside of the profile. This is actually auto-generated. And then he's got a couple of scripts in here, and as well as this monster of an alias. So the idea is that he wants to create this AI environment that I have access to a couple of like diffusers and transformers, and as well as this thing called PyTorch bin, which is a slightly cached version of some proprietarily licensed stuff from NVIDIA that takes a little bit to build. If you do this yourself, it will take like sometimes a few minutes to build this initially, but you'll see I'm expecting this. I haven't activated this in a week, but it should be fast. So I'm just gonna Flox activate remote is what that flag is short for, rostrk.flame. And this is coming from a service that we wrote called Flox Hub. The Flox Hub service is not open. Failed to parse link env. Did you mean build env? What just happened? We did a release. I think we broke something. Oh well. I should have checked this before.
Is Flox Hub using like OCI under the covers, or is that?
Hold up 1 second. I'm just gonna get out of my direnv environment because I wonder if it was. Is it using OCI under the covers? No.
Okay.
It's just using a Nix cache. Yeah. So that was an interaction between my my Flox Nix environment and Flox itself. Those sometimes you run into weird stuff, but here we can see that I've activated this remote environment. So none of the code is for this is on the machine. I'm like kind of temporarily in something that Ross wrote. It's here running test.xl. So there's this alias that's available inside of my shell. If you run this on, say a Linux machine running an RTX 3080, then it'll tell you that that NVIDIA's APIs are available. And right now, since I'm on an Apple Silicon machine, it's telling me that Metal is available. So then I can gen an image, apparently, to, I don't know, do stuff. So I am curious about a group of nerds that are collabing, on Kubernetes. I don't know if this model knows what Kubernetes is, which is a distributed computer. So maybe, this is kind of like a little toy thing. Also, this thing was almost certainly trained on, probably a corpus of art that includes things that are stolen. And frankly, I have no authoritative knowledge or introspection on what weights will get balanced in the matrix multiplication to produce whatever is going to come out of this. But there should be a file, in my workspace now. I don't know why that's not highlighting. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So let's, I don't know, open this. File doesn't exist. I don't know. Let's see what it did. Hey, look at that. It's Kubernetes. Kubernetes is 10. Yeah. Probably missing a few people there. I think we need some, probably girls. And at least there's old and young people. So, but yeah, I think if I actually, did my own art, I wouldn't draw it this way. But this is apparently the averages of all of the biases of humankind. I think that if you were to, ask our community what they represent themselves like, it is very evident why what we've built with Kubernetes and the cloud native toolset is an incredibly beautiful thing. It's why I am so happy when I can connect with all of you. I think that we have built something incredibly beautiful with containers. And there is a huge opportunity with what we're doing with Nix to stop having to work on workbenches that have copies of tools. right? Like it like when you are in a Docker Compose environment, there is a certain magic, and on a Linux machine, um, it feels good. But there's a certain overhead and there's a certain feeling that when I use containers, especially on my Mac, um, even despite all of the wonderful engineering, that I am putting my hands into a glove box, like a plexiglass sealed block box, where I don't have access to. It doesn't feel like home. And and then I Docker compose it, right? And I've got like this field of containers, and each one of those containers is its own separate workbench. And so I have like 6 workbenches in my garage. And actually, when I'm switching context between tasks, I'm walking in between them, right? So it's more that I feel like I'm in a general purpose workshop that has an overabundance of all of the same copies of the tools everywhere. And there's a certain overhead to this, right? This doesn't look like what my garage looks like, right? This is like a very industrial environment, right? I want to be here most of the time when I'm hacking, when I'm making stuff. It's practical, it's quick. I need my toolbox. I pull it down. And then when we want to push to the infrastructure environments, like there are already experiments. There's a Nix snapshotter for container D that can pull things directly from a store and can link them. Like we want to get past the layer limit. OverlayFS has a 128 layer limit for mounts. And obviously with a Nix store and a bunch of packages that are granularly built up as a bunch of input hashed, bits, we're going to need to be able to link in more than 128 things. And I think that there's an opportunity there with bind mounts because they, fundamentally, a Nix store does not conflict, right? So we don't need to use the features of overlay when we build a container. Um, if we can get the run times, right? Cryo, C run C, all the way up through the container D content stack. If we could make OCI a valid place to actually store a Nix store that was interoperable with the container ecosystem, there's a huge opportunity here. This is what I was talking to Tom about. I'm so excited to be working on this team, right? But it all starts with a simple workflow, a package manager that also does virtual environments, but it's for all of your OS stuff and it's cross compatible across all the machines that you care about. And yeah, it's super sick. Check it out. We have in our docs, like it's flox.dev/docs, and then the install page. This is the install page that I would prefer you to look at. We have an installer workflow like right on the top of the site. But like if we've got RPMs, if you already have Nix, like you can just go into a profile. There is a container that you can play with that's like very low commitment. We're available in Brew. I actually do that on this Mac. Flox is managed by Brew because Flox doesn't manage itself. Um, and well, Flox does manage itself if you go with the Nix way. Then you can do things. WSL, you know. So we got notes in here, and yeah, I don't know. Tell me what's broken. Go play with it and do something weird. So, uh, JP asks, how much intersect is there with Nixery? Nixery is the thing that does like when you Docker run nixery.dev/package name/package 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 name, it'll build you up a container that has those things available. And it's super cool. It basically builds an OCI manifest for you right on the fly, and then you pull those layers, which are pre-built from an OCI repository. And that idea of building a Docker manifest that points to content addressable Nix stores, like Nix derivation hashes and can like OCI content hashes. They're similar, but they're slightly different ideas. So then you wrap one in the other one. It's related. But the Nix snapshotter thing does not directly use the products of Nixery. Nixery is a really cool service. Yeah, but that's the idea. I have been demoing and sort of like just jumping around and answering a bunch of ad hoc questions. I feel like I'm on Twitch right now. Yeah, you guys have been so amazing. I do want to give anybody just a last bit, to ask whatever questions they want. But that is like an abstract summary of my brain right now as I'm like discovering this new world of making Nix easy. Our tagline is "Let's help you bring Nix to work." So, yeah, that's a Flox.dev. Go try it out and help us hack on it.
Yeah, so if anybody has any last minute questions, feel free to post them in chat. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap up and stop the recording and go on about our day.
Thank you so much, friends. JP, Thomas, Matt, Michael, amazing questions. Everybody, we really got into it here. I feel, oh, what's my email? Yeah, Leigh@flox.dev. You can reach me there for Flox stuff. You can also DM me on, I just created a Mastodon account on Hackaderm today. It's Leigh. Yeah, Leigh@flox.dev. My name's spelled a little bit weird, but yeah, Leigh@flox.dev. Or if you need my personal contact info, just DM me on Mastodon or Twitter or something. I didn't really.
Or reach out to me and the Meetup stuff, and I can put you.
You can find me in the Kubernetes Slack, CNCF Slack, anywhere. Just I get the notifications. I look at them. I'm like, hi. So.
Cool.
Oh.
Questions and Q&A.
Questions there's a Q&A session. Oh yeah, there's two questions. I have a question about the JetBrains IDE support and ... Me too. Yeah. I don't regularly use JetBrains IDEs. I should probably jump into the Rust one because everyone talks about how JetBrains Rust IDE is super good. And as far as IDE support goes, like if you launch your IDE from a shell that is already activated with Flox, then through normal Unix processy stuff, all of the environment variables are being inherited by your IDE. So all of the development tools that are associated with like the your language server protocol stuff and all that, you can make that come from a Nix store really easily by starting it from a Flox activated shell. Furthermore, there is a command mode. So it's Flox activate and then flags and then dash dash, and then you can run a command. So if you replace your shell launcher with that, you can put it into a Flox environment. And so that is like a way for at the top level to make sure that your IDE inherits all the things that you're looking for. If you use something like VS Code, this is something where we're working on the UX, you have the same requirement where you sort of need everything that VS Code executes to be inheriting the proper environments. You can also install IDEs, by the way, with Nix. And so then it's like naturally part of your environment and like you have to activate in order to get to your IDE. Like I recently started playing with Helix, which is a modal editor that's popular with Haskell folks. And like you can install Helix, with Nix.
You install Alacrity with Nix?
I haven't done it. I use Alacrity on my Mac. It's coming from Brew. I have not checked if somebody has done the cross OS package with Alacrity. In general, the stuff that you would get from Casks is a mixed bag on whether or not the package installer for the Nix Darwin stuff is there in Nix packages. So like you can get like esoteric stuff, and it sort of also depends on like the package version. Like sometimes package authors were like, I think I'm going to stop supporting this because like the macOS package is so different from the Linux one, and then we're just going to put it into a different package. or whatever. And then that's where you can use the escape hatch. So the GUI apps thing is like where I think the UX for the Mac users will probably be the worst. But anything that's packaged in Nix, if you are a Linux user, is going to work beautifully because that's the only way that it can work on Nix. Um, Mac Mac GUI applications again like kind of use their own thing, and those builds come from somebody else, right? They have to be signed with a key and all that. So optional sections for Darwin. Yeah, it looks like JP is looking into the Alacrity stuff, and it looks like there's Darwin stuff. So like the experience that you get from that is that the your Flox environment will actually have a macOS application folder inside of it. And then in Finder, you can add that application folder to your stuff and it will show up actually like in Spotlight and stuff like that. And then when you launch that binary application folder, which is how macOS apps are structured usually, then it will be launching from the symlinked Nix store inside of your Flox environment on your Mac. I have not played with that a lot. Like I've messed around with it, but it feels very alien to me, and it's super exciting. But yeah, question about IDE support. There was sort of the two angles, right? Like one is like, can you get your IDEs like from Nix, and does it work on Mac? For sure on Linux it does. For Mac, it's kind of like I don't know, like talk to your package maintainer, which that's why we want to make the user base bigger. But for actually like making the IDE itself a productive environment that can launch shells, you can either do it from the top, or you can configure your IDE to activate Flox internally, opening up things and when it opens up language server protocols and stuff. So that's going to vary from IDE to IDE. I'm not a JetBrains expert, but I know how to do it in VS Code and in Micro. Also, you put in another question here, Mike, about creating Flox environments in a repo, and it's not the project directory, which I think what you're asking here is, does my Flox environment have to live with my code? And the answer is no. Because since you are not in a container, you saw from before, like when I pass the -d flag, I can activate any environment that's on my machine or remotely via Flox Hub. Then like it doesn't have to be together. So I see now that you're clarifying in the chat that you want it to live with your code, so you can commit it, and that is like a key feature of the design. Just like how you would commit your Go mod or your package JSON with your code for your language specific stuff, you would commit your Flox environment like optionally. You can do that if you want. You can also push it to Flox Hub. Yes, it's designed to live with your code because the Flox environment, that /run directory, it's purely a symlink, and it's by default get ignored. So that /run directory only shows up there like when Flox realizes the environment and puts it together. But then the env JSON, which points you to like if you are pushing to a place remotely or if it's local, and then the env manifest toml and manifest.lock, all of those things are designed to be versioned with your Git repository, and then you can optionally use our service where we're playing with the idea of environments. The vision is that in the future we could build a software factory that like is checking for CVEs and updating your environments for you, and like that you would have private catalogs where you can push your stuff and you can create environments or private stuff like for everyone, and it would like auto update when people start their shells, and like a lot of this stuff is already possible and you can sort of assemble things. But there's a lot of possibilities once you have everything across your different machines, types, referencing the same package name with the ability to pull it in reproducibly. Yeah. And I think we found a catalog bug today, which is actually kind of exciting. So maybe I'll go look into why that wasn't showing up. But
So,
yeah.
Leigh, is there any type of tracking of environments locally within Flox? Like the model that I interpreted from the demos that you did is like, here's a directory, that directory represents a Flox environment, and I can stack those, but you're referencing them explicitly. Can I like discover Flox environments across my system? Does it keep any track? Can I list them? Like,
Yeah, we have a MySQL database.
okay,
Or sorry, a SQLite database.
SQLite database.
Yeah, we have it, and that's actually key. So like as we're going into the service management feature, where like when you activate a Flox environment, you can create subshells and multiple terminals and reactivate that environment in multiple contexts and stuff. And when all of them are alive, your services are alive. And then when they all go away, then your services automatically go away.
Yeah.
So that you're like not like just dying when your laptop is like in your backpack and it's like
Yeah. So can you reference those environments like by logical name rather than by directory, or?
right now it's by directory.
Okay.
But for what you're asking, if you use the -r flag, or in your env JSON, if you say that you're referencing the idea of a package and you're pushing to Flox Hub, then those packages are namespaced, right? So
Gotcha.
like Ross Turk /flame, that's like Ross's thing. It's like tied to his user information, his GitHub authentication with Flox Hub. And then when I reference that, it's nowhere on my directory system
Right.
that's like intended for me to mutate. So
Sure.
like we have a I think it's in it's one of the XDG directories, XDG share, I think, where we put a cache of tracking information of the Flox Hub stuff that you're working on. So Ross's thing gets cached, and then like his lock file gets pushed into like sort of a non-user facing part of my home directory. And then like that then gets realized in the Nix store as an environment that's on my machine. And then there's a symlink in there. So when I activate that -r thing, the next time that I need it, if I have internet, we can do a catalog lookup to make sure that I'm like up to date.
Yeah, the latest. Yeah.
But if I don't have internet, then like I have access to that environment and I'm accessing it by its namespace name in Flox Hub.
Gotcha.
And so then that sort of gets to the place where it's like, okay, like we want private catalogs, right? Which those aren't a thing yet. And we want to be able to have this in an air gap, or so like we're not like just abusing GitHub as a namespace. Like if you want to do the GitHub things, like clone your repos, put them into a folder, and then activate the stuff. And frankly, like it's your machine. Like if you're gonna go and put stuff on your file system, like it's on you to create conventions. Like I'm not gonna force you to do something, right? So that's sort of the idea there. Do I understand that you can Flox install and run daemons when you are in a directory and shut down when you leave the dir? We are releasing this month, Mike. We have you can find it. If you join our community Slack, I can link you to ship it. I just don't have the link on me right now and I'm not screen sharing. But ship it is our like place where we distribute all our builds. And then we also have a directory on our website where you can see all of the nightly builds. You can also find them like in our GitHub repo. Like you just look around and you'll get to the builds. Like our most recent release candidate, which is publicly available, has the first cut line of our service management already done. So it like works to start daemons. But then throughout the month, we are shipping a couple of extra bits and adding this watchdog process that's monitoring like which shells, all of the shell PIDs that you have open for your Flox activations inside of the SQLite DB. So then that way it knows how to like close them when you shut down, and that feature is shipping. It's like the thing that we are working on right now. The other thing that's in prototype phase is the builds stuff that I was talking about. Nix builds are kind of have a reputation of being a little bit opaque, and we're probably I don't know. There's no real concrete timeline, but soon-ish, Flox build is a thing, and it's the manifest UX for it is looking pretty sweet. So. I don't have the bandwidth to work with RCs at the moment, just asking for the future. Yeah, I mean, this month. That's a pretty decent promise already, because like the shape of it is already there, and we ship every 2 weeks. So service management is what that feature set's called. So sweet. There is just a few of us left, but like I have so much love for all of you, and yeah, I really appreciate the the intensity of interest. Honestly, like when I feel so fortunate, to have found this team. The number of crimes in Bash that I am able to not only commit but code review and debug has increased exponentially, which is saying a lot because crimes in Bash are like one of my favorite things. So like not to say that it's all Bash, but like when you're tracking shell PIDs and stuff, it is a lot of like generating Bash scripts at strategic times. And yeah, the folks that but it's like for a good reason. Like these environments are painful, and if you want to build like virtualization of packages and development environments on top of POSIX without requiring like special linking into the kernel's syscalls and APIs, like with namespaces and C groups, like we built like it's weird to say, it's like a virtualization technology. It's not so weird, I guess, when you compare it to Python, but it's a little bit more ambitious than that. Like we have like considerations for like LD library path. We have a LD audit thing, which that's probably it's exactly what it sounds like. It's like wizardy, like linker magic, like and it like falls back to like looking up stuff in the next door for you dynamically when the linker is running. Like that's like dark magic. So I'm like learning amazing stuff like from my teammates. We're building something cool. It solves a universal problem, like a pain that every dev team, every build engineer faces. And I'm happy to be here. So come work on it with us, or at least just come use it and then tell me what's broken. So.
Yeah, I definitely intend on checking it out because my team has some of these problems. So
yeah, I mean, and it's like hipstery, it is a lot like brew install, and I like brew install. Yeah, so
yeah. Cool.
Thank you, friends. Such a joy to be with you for a third time, and I can't wait to be at a Cloud Native Atlanta in person in 2025. So
yeah. Hopefully, I'll see you before then. But thanks again.
You will definitely see me before then. So
thanks again for presenting to the community. Thanks for those that showed up. And with that being said, we're going to close out this month's meetup. See you next time.